Have you ever really thought about it? You flush the toilet, wash your hands, do the dishes, and the water just disappears. But where does it actually go? Well, today we're going to follow that water on its pretty surprising journey.
So, let's follow a single drop of water. But before we see where it's going, we've got to understand where it starts. And that, of course, is with us, in our homes.
Just take a look at this. It's kind of wild, but a whopping 40% of the water we use inside is just for flushing the toilet. 40%. When you add in bathing and laundry, you start to realize that every single household is creating a massive amount of used water, what we call wastewater, every single day.
But here's the thing that might blow your mind. All that wastewater we're so eager to get rid of, it's almost entirely just water. We're talking 99.9% water.
Right, it's that tiny little 1/10 of 1% that causes all the problems. That small fraction is a nasty cocktail of pollutants, human waste, and microbes that can be really harmful to our health and to the environment if we don't deal with it.
And managing that 0.1% is a true modern marvel of engineering, because for most of human history, not managing it was a deadly, civilization-changing mistake.
Believe it or not, the ancient Romans had pretty advanced central sewer systems. But after Rome fell, Europe basically plunged into what's called the sanitary dark age. It was not great. Fast forward to the 1800s, and cities started collecting sewage again, but mainly to use as fertilizer. This, mixed with jam-packed cities, was a recipe for disaster. It led directly to some truly catastrophic disease outbreaks.
And let's be clear, we're not just talking about bad smells here. We're talking about diseases like cholera and typhoid fever running rampant through the biggest cities in the world. Untreated wastewater created a massive public health crisis. We needed a better solution, and we needed it fast.
And that brings us to today. So now, our little drop of water reaches a fork in the road. Its journey is going to be completely different depending on where it is, out in the country or in the middle of a big city.
Okay, let's take the first path. This one leads to a surprisingly clever, totally self-contained system. You can think of it as a personal wastewater treatment plant, right in your own backyard.
This is the septic tank, and the best way to think about it is like a stomach for your house. It's a simple, buried tank that uses totally natural processes to start cleaning that wastewater right on your property.
And how it works is honestly, elegantly simple. First, wastewater flows into the tank and just slows way down. This gives the heavy solids time to sink to the bottom, while lighter stuff like grease floats to the top. Then, a whole army of bacteria that don't need oxygen get to work, basically digesting all the organic stuff.
Over time, you get these three distinct layers inside the tank. You got the scum on top, the heavy sludge on the bottom, and in the middle, a pretty clear layer of wastewater. That middle layer is what eventually flows out of the tank to be cleaned even more by the soil.
Sounds pretty great, right? Almost like a perfect, self-sufficient system. So what's the catch?
Yeah, it's maintenance. That sludge layer at the bottom, it builds up, and it doesn't just disappear. You have to get it pumped out every few years. If you don't, the sludge gets too high, flows out of the tank, and clogs up the whole system. Trust me, that's a foul and very expensive problem to have. Okay, so let's hit rewind and go back to that fork in the road. Now we're taking the second path. If you're in a city, our drop of water enters this huge underground web of pipes, and they all lead to one massive, centralized place.
Welcome to the Wastewater Treatment Plant, or WWTP for short. This is an industrial-scale operation with one critical mission: take all the raw wastewater from thousands, sometimes millions of people, and turn it back into clean water that's safe for us and for the environment.
So how do they do it? Well, a modern plant uses a whole sequence of treatment stages. You've got preliminary, primary, secondary, and sometimes even tertiary treatment. We're just going to focus on the very first step.
The whole process starts with something called screening. The best way to picture it is like a giant colander for the entire city. Its only job is to catch all the big stuff: plastic, wood, things people flushed that they really shouldn't have, so that none of the expensive pumps and pipes downstream get damaged.
And there's not just one kind of screen. First, the water passes through what are called coarse screens. They have bigger gaps to catch the larger debris. After that, it might go through fine screens, which have tiny openings, sometimes less than a millimeter wide, to catch smaller particles that could mess up the really sensitive biological steps later on. So whether we're talking about a simple septic tank buried in a backyard or a giant municipal plant, this whole system is working around the clock, mostly out of sight and out of mind. But why is this invisible infrastructure so fundamentally important to all of us?
When you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? Well, this complex, hidden process prevents the spread of diseases that used to absolutely devastate our cities. It protects our rivers, lakes, and oceans from pollution. And really, it is, without a doubt, one of the most critical and most underappreciated pillars of modern public health.
The systems we depend on every single day are truly a 20th century marvel, built to solve 20th century problems. Which leaves us with one big question. As we face new challenges like climate change, new kinds of contaminants, and growing populations, what does the future of water treatment really look like in the 21st century?